Hello, so this is the Fusion360 tutorial for creating the desktop organizer for your Stage 5 Design and Tech Assessment 2 task. Now, to begin this project, this example, I've started by creating some sketches. So you can see here that I've started with a rough sketch for what my desktop organizer should look like. And I've put some annotations there as well. To help me understand those different elements. And then I've taken that sketch and turned it into a little bit of an exploded drawing where I've unpacked all of the pieces that I want to create for this particular project. Okay, so that's something that we probably want to do to begin any task. Now you can see that I'm going into Fusion360 and I'm using the sketching functions to design or to start building my componentry. I'm just using the rectangular tools, and to make it easy for myself, I'm using the function of starting from a particular point and the rest of the rectangle exploding out of it. I'll say this, at any point in this tutorial video, you have the ability to pause the video, re-watch the steps that I'm taking to create my different elements. So please make the most of that ability. That's why this is a video, so that you can pause, rewind, and by watching the video, learn the different steps that I'm going through to create my example, and then hopefully you can use it yourself when you're creating your own. So at this point, I am designing the base board that my laptop is going to sit on. So my desktop organizer is essentially a laptop stand with a pen box underneath it, and I want my laptop to sit above my desk, so it's a little bit closer to my eye line, and now I'm creating that particular shape there. You can see the measurements that I'm using, or the measurements that I am using. They are all based on me measuring my MacBook. Okay, so I've designed this particular desktop organizer to fit the dimensions of my MacBook, and I've just taken a measuring tape, or in your case you can use a ruler, and I am starting to create those shapes. By watching what I'm saving now, you will see a few different things. Number one, I'm saving all the different elements that are going to be used to make this desktop organizer, and in a second you're also going to see me save my work in a new project. So you can see down here now that I'm creating a new folder, and then I change my mind, and rather than creating a new folder, I'm creating a new project. Okay, so you can create a new project, call it 5DT Assessment Task 2, AT2, and then you can save all those components in that project folder just to make it easier for you to identify those different pieces. Okay, so that's the first piece that I've made quite quickly because it's just a base for my laptop, and as we continue watching through this video, I continue to construct different elements. One thing that you might also be noticing as I start designing my pieces, depending on the orientation, whether I want it to be sitting flat or whether I want this piece to be sitting upright, I'm choosing the face or the axis, the X, Y, or Z axes that is most suitable for the piece that I'm making, because that just makes it easier when I want to align it and put all the different pieces together later on in this particular tutorial. So now I'm designing or building the ribs. Now these ribs are essentially the connection pieces that are going to hold the structure of my desktop organized together, and it's going to essentially act like a jigsaw puzzle. I'm drawing a line through the center of this design right now, and you can see when I select the line, I'm coming over to the right hand side and I'm changing the nature from a drawn line, and if you look at what my cursor is going to do in a second, it's going to select something that we called a construction line feature, what I've just done there. Okay, now a construction line isn't a line that we can use to draw on, but I'm going to show you a new function here. So when I when I select this box shape over here, or the lines that make up this box shape, I'm holding down Shift when I want to select more than one thing at once. I'm going to now click on, at the top of the page, a mirror function, and then it asks me to create a mirror line. And that mirror line is essentially the point at which that box is going to mirror over. So you can see on the other side of that structure now, I've got that same exact shape that I've mirrored. Okay, so that's another function that you might want to learn and play around with your project, creating a mirror line. So my ribbed joint has now been created. I'm saving it as such and saving it again in that project folder that we created a little bit earlier. I'm now creating the pencil box component of this project, which is going to be 3D printed. So this piece here is going to be 3D printed. All the other components that I've drawn are going to be laser cut. Okay, so this piece is slightly different. It's still going to go into the design the same as all the others when I put it together as a CAD model, but I will be 3D printing this component, not laser cutting it, just based on the shape of it as opposed to everything else. So everything else is going to be made from 5mm ply, whereas this particular component is going to be 3D printed. So another consideration for you to think about when you're creating or designing your components is what parts do you want 3D printed based on their composition, and what parts of your project do you want laser cut. Okay, so something for you guys to think about with your project. And you can see that I'm going through and just finalizing the dimensions for those components. And when you create the rectangle, or when you drag the rectangle to create a shape, before you click enter, if you just start typing in the dimensions that you want for the length and then press tab, and the dimensions that you then want for the width, it will automatically snap your product to those dimensions, or your design to those dimensions, and it makes it a little bit easier for you. So using just your keypad and the tab function, or the tab key, rather than trying to draw something by eye, is a really effective way to get accuracy with your Fusion 360 design. So I'm just drawing and designing this piece as we speak, and I'm using the extrude function to either turn something into a 3D object like you would have seen in the last two examples, or in this case here, cutting away some of the shape as well, so that I can create a recess for my pens and pencils to fit into that space. Okay, and I'm saving my work again, saving it in that folder like you've seen with the last three elements that this project is going to be made from. You can see here that I'm using the keypad again to put the exact measurements that I want into these shapes that I'm drawing, and using the tab function to switch between the vertical, like the height or the depth of the cut or the shape, and the length of it or width of it. So that's something that you should be using as well, using the tab key to move between the two dimensions to make your shapes so that it's as accurate as possible. And again, you're going to see me using the mirror tool. So finding the midpoint of my design or of my object, drawing a line that I'm going to turn into a construction line, and then using that as the midpoint, as a mirror line, so that what I draw on one side of the object is going to be exactly replicated on the other side of the object, so that we have symmetry on both sides of the object. Okay, so you can see I've used that function again, and it's something that you should be using in your designs so that you get perfect symmetry on both the right and left hand side of your object. You don't want it to be 1 or 2 mil off. We want it to be exact when we're creating something that is industrial. Okay. And then if you make some changes, make sure you're saving your work again after those changes have been made. Now I'm going to make the most intricate pieces for my project, which is the sides. So these pieces hold the structure together. And if you go back and look at the sketches at the beginning of this tutorial, you'll see that they're a little bit more organic in nature. They're not rectangular. They're not something that can be drawn very easily and just extruded. There's a little bit more consideration that needs to go into how they've been designed, and you can see as the video is being, or as the video is playing, that I'm pausing quite a lot to refer back to my drawing, which is something that you probably want to be doing as well, just so that you're creating something that is as accurate as possible. Okay, so you can see I'm starting to create the base or the lower structure for my side view, and this is something that's going to be created twice, or printed out twice, laser cut twice, and then, you know, on either side of my object is going to hold the structure together. So I'm putting the base in now. I'm putting the back structure, and now I'm going to create a diagonal slope that is going to essentially hold my laptop base. Okay, so that piece that we made right at the beginning for our laptop is going to essentially fit into this diagonal structure that I'm making now. And I'm playing around now with the angle that I want this particular piece to be set at for a few reasons. Number one, because I want it to be functional when someone's using it and typing with their laptop, but also because this thing is being made physically. If the angle is too sharp, as you can see there, any structure that might be required below this particular line to give it its depth, you don't want it interfering with that base structure that I've already drawn out with that rectangular section at the bottom. So I'm just playing around with the angle that I want to set this particular line at, and the same thing applies. I've set the length of this piece to 30 or 30 centimeters or 300 millimeters, and then I'm pressing tab to go from that particular dimension to the angle that I'm setting it at. So I'm not, you know, using my mouse at all. I'm just setting the distance that I want this piece to be, and then pressing tab to ensure that it's going to be as accurate as possible, and to again shift between those dimensions. And now you can see what I mean about not having interference between that diagonal piece at the top that's going to hold the laptop base and the rectangular structure at the bottom. So there's about 3 or 4 mil of clearance in that particular piece, which is exactly what I wanted, to be honest with you. I'm now using something called a spline tool to create a little lip around the bottom of that laptop base so that the laptop doesn't slide off it. so that the laptop doesn't slide off it when it's sitting on that base. So this is just going to be a little stopper on either side that's going to essentially lock it in. And I'm still just playing around with the shape to ensure that I get the shape that I want. And that's something that you'll also want to do. So the way that it works is that you click on where you want the spline to start, you click on where you want the spline to end, and then you obviously got pieces in the middle as well, a piece in the middle as well that you have to place, and you can play around with adjusting that spline once it's been drawn by dragging on those curves that you've drawn. So you can drag from the little dots that are on that spline to adjust its thickness, to adjust the curved nature of the spline, and if you then click on the black circles or the black dots, you can adjust the height and the depth of it too. I'm now just drawing the slit that the laptop base is going to be held into on this diagonal, and this takes a bit of time because it's obviously been drawn on an angle. And when you're creating your own, you also want to be deliberate with this. What you will see in this video though, and I'll elaborate on it more later on, is that I've actually put the wrong measurements for this slit that I'm creating now. And then part of the process of creating these particular elements and then putting them together in Fusion is to troubleshoot that it fits all together. So I'm creating it now thinking that the measurements are right, and we'll see later on that they're not. And then I need to go through a process of adjusting this particular drawing and the model that we use or that we create from this drawing to ensure that it's actually going to fit together. So that's something to be aware of as we continue watching this video. I'm now just speeding up the video because you don't need to see all of the drawing and adjusting that I'm doing. Part of the thing with Fusion as well that you'll notice, even as someone that uses it regularly, is you've got so many functions that aren't difficult at all, but you've got so many functions that you understand how to use and could use. Part of the process of creating these drawings is number one, remembering all the functions and how exactly to use them, but also you'll try something, it might not work, you try something slightly different and adjust as you go. You can see here that I'm selecting all the different elements that I want to extrude. So if you want to select multiple shapes at once, because there's so many lines intersecting and so many different shapes that are building this structure, you need to hold down Shift when you're selecting those pieces to do that extrusion. You can see I'm adjusting the spline there as well to make it a bit smaller before I do the extrusion. So by holding down Shift when you're selecting all those different shapes, you're able to keep adding as opposed to just selecting one at a time. And you can see that that's my side piece now created. What I'm doing now is I'm actually starting to import some pieces into a new object, and I'm placing them all together using the move function. And I'm not just placing them, I'm also naming the component. So I've gone into the object tab on the left hand side, and I'm making sure to name all my different components so that when I want to select them or adjust them or move them, I'm not having to remember, oh, what's object 1, what's object 2. I know exactly what it is because I've actually named it in the in the tab. Okay, and now I'm taking my time using the top view, using the side view to line it up correctly. And again, I'm doing this because I'm trying to simulate how I would put it together in the real world once all these pieces have been either 3D printed or laser cut. So I'm putting the product together virtually to troubleshoot if things don't align. Okay, so you can see I've first aligned it in the top view, now I'm aligning it in the side view, and I'm zooming in and looking really closely to ensure that those elements that I've drawn are actually going to fit together. Okay, now you can use the arrows to do that alignment, but I'm also using, you can see the dimension. If it's snapping too far from one point to the next and I need to get in between that, I can adjust with the dimension feature of the move function as well. So I'm going to start putting this piece together, or putting this product together. And once we've done a few of these, or once you've been able to see me put a few of these components together, I will speed it up the videos again. But we'll just watch me finish putting the pencil box structure in and one of the ribs, because my next one will show a bit of a rotation, not just moving the object but rotating it, and then I'll speed up the video again to show what it looks like once I've completed. Now if this is the first time you're putting constructing something and putting all these separate pieces together, it might take a little bit of time to learn or get comfortable doing it, but that's really part of the process. Okay, part of the process is playing around with these particular features, getting comfortable with them. So just take your time. I'm now inserting a new derive. So it's not a new component by itself. I'm deriving it from something that I've already made. And the reason why I would do that is because if I need to make adjustments based on errors that I identify in this process, by inserting it as a derive, it should, the changes that I make to the base or to the original file should come into this particular construction as well. Now there's an issue with that slightly in this video, but it should work for you every time you do that. So I'm currently inserting the rib now. You can see I'm lining it up. I'm making sure that I'm using angles that are directly side on, or side on with a slight angle upward, but I'm not looking at it from like a 3D or an isometric view. I'm either looking at it, flush side on, flush top on, or flush front on, so that I can line up all the pieces perfectly in their slots. So now I've put one of the ribs in, and I'll speed up the next bit because I'm just going to add 6 more ribs now to this structure, putting it together, inserting the same derive, making sure that I'm labeling each of the pieces. So you can see that I've got rib BF, which means rib bottom front, rib BM, rib bottom middle, rib BB, rib bottom back. And then I'll have a slightly different notation system for the ribs that are coming on the back piece. So it's going to be like rib RB or BK for rib back bottom, rib back mid, rib back top. So just having some kind of notation that you understand, so that if you need to adjust or move a particular element later on, you'll know what element it is that you're selecting. Now Fusion also will highlight the element if you hover over it, but it's just a good practice to get into, because if you've got a structure with 6 elements, it's not so hard to see which element or which component you want to select. But the more comfortable or the more intricate Fusion models get, you might have 50 components. So it's really important to name them independently. Now what you're going to see here is that error that I'm talking about, where when I tilt my laptop base, the slit that I've made for the laptop base to fit into is wider than the actual base itself. So you can see that there's white space on either side, which is the error that I've made. So now I need to go back into my side views and essentially close up those spaces a little bit. And you're going to see me go back into the sketch, edit the sketch that I created before, fill it up a little bit more. So fill up the spaces on both the right and left-hand side. And I actually have to do that twice because the first edit that I make fills it up somewhat, but I think it was still 10 mil on either side too wide. So I fill it up. I then re-extrude that shape, as you'll see in a minute, to make it 3D. But I then need to adjust it again. So we'll go through watching those changes now. And again, you can replay these parts of the tutorial as many times as you need to see the steps that I'm going through. Okay, that's why it's a video. Make the most of it. So I'm extruding it now. Solid extrude. I'm saving my work because the changes won't be made into the final component unless these have been saved. And now I'm going back into my new component that I'm creating to see what changes have been made. So we'll see that in a second. So again, I'm saving my work as I do that. And now when I look at it from the side, you'll see here that I need to, this is what I mean. So normally if you click on that button, it will adjust the pieces without deleting them. For some reason it deleted them here, so I'm going to reinsert those side views one at a time and just line it up properly. And now you can see the second set of changes that I'm making because it's still wasn't resolved. Now it's resolved. So I'm placing it in. It now fits. I now need to move my pen box back into place. And you can see now that I've got, or will very soon have, the finished construction. I'm now going into all the separate components, and you can see that I've gone on the left hand side at the top from the design feature to the drawing interface. Now this is taking what I've just drawn as an independent component and it's turning it into an engineering drawing. Now I don't need it to be an engineering drawing with dimensions and a title block that you can see on the bottom right. I just need it to be in a 1:1 scale. So you can see I'm going to place that object and I'm changing it to a scale of 1:1, so it's exactly the size that it would be in real life, so that when I place this into my laser cutter, because I want to laser cut that particular piece, it's going to print or laser cut the exact scale that I require. So I'm actually turning all of my separate components that are going to be laser cut into drawings that are in a 1:1 scale. I'm also deleting the title block because I don't need it. I just want this to be saved as a PDF. So I'm creating this drawing, I'm exporting it as a PDF. Okay, save it somewhere that you're going to remember it on your desktop, maybe in a folder on your desktop called AT2. And again, I'm naming it. I'm not just calling it drawing 1 or untitled 1 or whatever it might be. I'm naming it so that when I do need to laser cut it, I know exactly what that drawing represents. This is my computer base. And you're going to see me go through that process multiple times now for all the different elements that are going to be laser cut. So I'm going from the base now. I need to draw my rib. So again, drawing, leave all the functions or all the options for the drawing standard for the isometric engineering drawing. I'm just placing the object in a 1:1 scale. in the view that I want it to be cut and deleting the title block. You can see here I was playing around with maybe putting 6 on one page, and I thought, no, I'll just do one, and then I can make multiple in the actual laser cutting interface later on. So I'm saving that now as my rib joints, as a PDF, exporting as a PDF on the right hand side, as you can see, naming, and I'll do that again also for the side view in a second. The last thing you're going to see me do with the pen box is, rather than creating a drawing, we are going to export the pen box as an STL file, because it's going to be 3D printed. So you're watching me export it as an STL file now. And once you have done this, you've created a drawing, or you've created the components, you've put it together in Fusion, it all fits together. You've created the drawings for the laser cutting, the STL file for the 3D print. Your product now is ready to be produced. So I hope you found this tutorial useful. I hope you can now work through this tutorial step by step using the timestamps in the YouTube description of the video to assist you with the part of the video that you're up to. Again, take your time, refer back to those timestamps, pause the video where you need so that you can make the most of the learning and continually review the steps that you're watching me complete in this video. Thank you very much.